ABC 7 continues to follow the breaking news from Minnesota. What you're looking at are live pictures right now. One is on the ground on the right side with all the tear gas. On the left, you can see that is from earlier, and you can see more structures and businesses are being burned. We know the FBI is involved in the investigation of the officers that were involved in the death of the man who was on the ground in handcuffs, and an officer had his knee on his neck. And the man, Mr. Floyd, said he could not breathe. He said it a number of times, and then he died. And this has been the response all across the country.
And that was in D.C. less than 30 minutes ago as a fifth night of protest rages on across the country. People demanding justice for the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis, saying they are also demonstrating against systemic racism. Right now, there are curfews in effect for about a dozen U.S. cities because of these protests. Demonstrations happening in Atlanta, Los Angeles, Chicago, and right here in the nation's capital.
People jumped on the hoods of 3 U.S. Secret Service vehicles, smashing windows, flattening tires, plus spray painting anti-Trump and police rhetoric. Officers with plastic shields and wooden batons forced protesters back. All to keep a wider perimeter around the White House grounds.
Somebody help him!
Several protesters washed out their eyes.
Are you okay? Do you need a spray?
Seemingly from some sort of chemical that was fired into the crowd. Today's protest started around 2:30 beside the U.S. Capitol reflecting pool. The crowd, easily topping 1,000, spoke their minds without turning to vandalism. During a press conference this afternoon, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser stated violence is not the answer.
I call upon our city and our nation to exercise great restraint, even while the president tries to divide us.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.
This is an SUV. I believe it belongs to the media. What's a bit sobering is that we were parked on this block. And we moved the vehicle around 10:50 because things were getting out of control and we were concerned that something like this could happen.
We got a building that appears to be under construction on fire to the right, to my left, towards the White House. Things are getting worse and worse with each passing moment that goes by as far as this confrontation.
I tried to go in there to see real quick if there was a fire extinguisher. I called 911 and told them to get here now. This is, again, that professional office building. Sir, do you have any idea what happened here? I mean, presume an arson.
They just started vandalizing. They just started vandalizing.
And you're a security guard at this building.
Yes.
What do you make of this, sir?
Chaos.
Carl, kind of a dangerous scene playing out just behind us, unfortunately. We are trying to keep a safe distance, but this is the AFL-CIO building. I know that there's a lot of profanities on the graffiti, and we apologize for that, but you can see that protesters are inside this building. They have broken through several of the windows and doors.
How many times are you guys gonna beat us, kill us like we're not like you, like I'm not like her? We have the same organs, we have the same eyes, we have the same nose. We are one people. All we want is justice. We just want to wake up in the morning and not worry about getting killed.
Every single American should be outraged by the murder of George Floyd. However, smashed windows and looting are becoming a bigger story than the broken systems that got us here.
Even in the civil rights movement, civil rights for all, there was still sexism.
Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton remembers the March on Washington well. As a young activist, she was in charge of organizing buses and trains to the march. Holmes was one of many women working behind the scenes to ensure the march was a success. 250,000 people filled the National Mall. Women marched. Women sang.
Oh, he's got everybody in his hands.
But look at the program for that historic day. Only one woman was allowed to speak.
When it got to the point of choosing speakers, each of the big six was chosen to speak, but not Dorothy Height.
The Big Six were all men. Dorothy Height, often called the godmother of the civil rights movement, an architect of the march and skilled speaker, denied, along with other instrumental women of the movement like Rosa Parks. They were only invited on stage for a tribute to Negro women. Their voices muted. Mrs. Medgar Evers, or Myrlie Evers, missed her turn at the microphone due to traffic at the airport. Daisy Bates stepped in, the only female speaker on that historic day. Bates led school integration efforts in Arkansas. She organized the Little Rock Nine.
That Black women are still pushing these agendas forward. They're still being the ones that are, again, always inclusive of others. It's not just about Black women. When Black women win, we all win.
I am also taking swift and decisive action to protect our great capital, Washington, D.C. What happened in this city last night was a total disgrace.
And with that, President Trump just declaring that there is going to be a much swifter action taken to clean up the streets, clear the streets.
I am on the sidewalk of H Street, just north of Lafayette Square, which is just north of the White House. So essentially, these police you see right here, and they're advancing again. And now they're...
Gosh.
You see
That's a photographer.
What's going on now?
A member of the press.
Now there's just a lot of violence erupting. Ben, back up, back up. All right, I don't know. Tear gas everywhere. We're going to get off to the side here.
We understand President Trump now is on the move somewhere. Not sure where he is going, but let's keep an eye on that as he's walking out. Let's listen in.
It's 8 miles. We have a great country. That's my thoughts.
And I'm not sure if this was a photo op or this was just a stroll. I mean, I'm not sure what was going on here. But if Tom Rousey can hear us and he's got his mic open, maybe we could just listen. We can just listen for a second. And, hold on.
We have the greatest country in the world. Thank you very much, everybody. We're going to keep it nice and safe.
We don't care about no curfew. We don't care about none of that. We don't care what they have to say. They kill us, nothing's done. People show with AR-15s, begging for a haircut, begging for stores to be open. But when we come out here and protest because a white man put his knee down on a black man and killed him in cold blood, and we come out here to protest that, this is what happens. That's why we out here. We're not going nowhere at all. We here. We here for as long as we can. We not running.
This is an ABC 7 News Town Hall. The racial divide. Time for change.
We're at a breaking point and we have to do something.
Thousands taking to the streets right here in our communities. Millions more across the country and around the world.
What happened in the US was it was the spark that sparked it everywhere.
Rising voices united in a way we've never seen before. The death of George Floyd, a breaking point after years of racial injustice and police brutality.
This isn't just one, incident. It's just 400 years of so much stuff.
Tonight, we hear from leaders who can make a difference and the people on the streets who pledge not to stop until those changes happen.
We are angry, we are frustrated, and this is just the beginning. It will not stop here.
So what are the possible solutions, and what is our best path forward?
Not just about black people coming out saying Black Lives Matter, but we collective as a society are coming together to say that Black Lives Matter.
It's a great movement, and I'm hoping we'll get somewhere very soon.
It's time for change. The whole world is changing, man. And you got to change what? It's 2020.
And tonight here at ABC 7, we want to begin an open conversation about this time for change in our country. Good evening. I'm Michelle Marsh.
And I'm Jonathan Elias. It's good to have you along this evening. We want to have a very important and a very necessary conversation tonight. That's why we put together this town hall discussion.
That all of us have a moral obligation to hold our country to its promise that all of us should be able to enjoy justice and freedom. And I am just really, this is an exciting time to be alive and to have the opportunity to lead us to what I know will be a brighter future for our children. So what we're seeing now is years of frustration and pain We reached a tipping point that I think, in all honesty, was helped by the COVID crisis, where so many are feeling the unity of distress with job losses and health crises, and to be able to relate then to the murder of George Floyd. I think that we were able to relate to each other in a very different way, and I think change is coming.
All I have here is black, white, and 2 variants of gray.
Des Zambrano met us inside the National Museum building as he completes arguably the most important portrait of his career, one that's only a couple inches high.
Good trouble is necessary trouble, necessary to invoke change.
Zambrano and Jamal Lamage,
here we have the layout of the jersey,
are creating commemorative pieces of art for August 28th, the 57th anniversary of the March on Washington, each piece honoring John Lewis, the civil rights leader and member of Congress who recently passed away.
We see what's going on right now in the lives of our brothers and sisters, and we want to say something.
Lamage's painting places 3 towering figures, Lewis surrounded by Dr. King and President Obama, on the jersey of a team called Good Trouble. The number 23, donned by legends Michael Jordan and LeBron James, holding special meaning.
John Lewis was actually 23 years old when he spoke at the March on Washington.
This, to me, is a responsibility and an honor.
Zambrano chose another iconic symbol of sport as his canvas, the Nike Air Force One, this classic symbol of urban wear carefully covered by those who gave everything for the cause of equality.
I thought it'd be really dope to put a poignant figure on a classic silhouette of a shoe.
We brought you to this grand interior to reveal an even bigger story about the role of art within activism.
You don't make history, you're a part of it.
John Chisholm with the Paints Institute in D.C. called on gifted artists a couple months ago to create dozens of murals that now dot D.C.'s landscape. Murals expressing hope in the wake of racial unrest. Well, the National Building Museum will now host an outdoor exhibition opening August 28th featuring many of those powerful murals.
These protests were happening in our neighborhood and just a few blocks away, and to be able to be tell that story and to continue to tell that story, I'll be so excited that visitors will be able to come over and see these murals.
So plenty of good trouble coming soon to the National Building Museum. Jay Korf, ABC 7 News.
Boiling over into now nightly events, protests often sparking riots, police departments strained. 24 states have called in the National Guard, and in the president's own city, Washington, D.C., his calls for law and order have meant little.
This is the reason that we have called in Atlanta and across this country for people to just take a step back, peacefully protest, and then please go home at 9 o'clock.
According to the Associated Press, the president berated state leaders on Monday in a call, saying most of you are weak. You have to arrest people, claiming they look like fools.
It is their responsibility to police their streets. They have the police power embedded in the Constitution. They have quite clearly, many of them, failed to do their job.
But across the country, the protests are growing in number and intensity. And as a result, more mayors, in hopes of quelling them, are instituting curfews too. And on top of obvious danger, there's a less visible one, but also of concern.
We're still in the middle of a pandemic. You who are out there peacefully protesting, again, if you're starting to get symptoms of COVID-19, please isolate.
And governors saying there has to be more to it than just rage.
It's not enough to come out and say, I'm angry, I'm frustrated. And you want what done? You need the answer.
We're looking for peace. We're looking for justice. People were murdered this week, and we're out here protesting. We knew full well that we might be tear gassed, and we still went on out there anyway because it matters. Black lives matter. It matters. Our visibility matters. Our voices matter.
Here you guys.
Removing the statue, and there you have it. They just removed the statue. They just successfully removed Albert Pike's statue here at Judiciary Square on Juneteenth. So you can see the protesters surrounding the statue as it goes up in flames. What kind of satisfaction are you getting from this?
Satisfaction that pieces of history that shouldn't be around are no longer around, and they're coming down.
The whole point of this, with these hundreds of protesters out here, is to make as much noise as possible so that the folks at the Republican National Convention can hear them, can hear their voice, and can hear what they have to say. And I got to point out a couple of things to you. Not only is there amazing go-go music on a moving flatbed, but there's also, Ryan, if he could show us over here, there's a party bus, and on both the front and the back side of the bus are basically there's a basketball net that's set up. Ryan, let's go back here to the back real quick. The other thing that I love about here is that they basically ask people to bring whatever they want. Bullhorns, pots and pans, whatever, to make noise. Now, earlier tonight, we talked with folks about this night of noise. Take a look.
These young people are not playing, and I love it. I just love the vibe of it.
We have to respect everybody's tactics.
They're basically trying to make all the noise as possible so they can hear it in the White House. It's a good thing to voice protest. I think it's revitalized, and I think it's needed. I think it shows unity.
It makes me feel good, and it also saddens me at the same time. It saddens me because we have to come out here to do this because so many of us are losing our lives.
We're tired of seeing blood on the streets of our brothers, cousins, aunts, uncles, babies, kids.
They say that the White House is soundproof. We want enough people out here to break the glass.
We came here to the city of Alexandria for a conversation about the past, the present, and the future.
Today, my grandson graduated from high school. What is the world going to look like for him?
And as Earl Cook searches for the answer to that question, he finds himself looking back to his own high school years at T.C. Williams.
I was a rising junior.
In 1971, he was a member of TC's newly integrated football team.
I don't care if you like each other or not, but you will respect each other.
A team whose story was told in the film Remember the Titans.
I come to win.
And whose coaches and players won a state championship and brought their community together during a time of intense racial divide.
Growing up in this city, I was such a beneficiary of civil rights activists.
Earl then went on to become the city's first African-American police chief, a job he held for 7 years until his retirement in 2016.
I'm told by society to be proud you're the first black one, which is automatically opposing the thought that compared to what? To a white standard?
Black Lives Matter! So when he talks about racism and watches protests now happening nationwide over the death of George Floyd, Earl once again finds himself looking back.
Regrets because I was in a position to affect change. I attempted to affect change. But in hindsight, I wasn't bold enough. I wasn't nearly bold enough.
As for the future, he believes the work ahead will be difficult.
What you really need is reform and reset police departments. We have not progressed to the point where we've changed our institutions. They are exactly at the place they were when I was a teenager.
But Earl has faith in the next generation.
The young people, like my grandson, is the answer.
And perhaps one day they too will be remembered as Titans.
And that's what gives me hope.
Heather Graff, ABC 7 News.
Overall, most of these protesters believe that the 2020 presidential election belongs to President Donald Trump and not President-elect Joe Biden. Today's crowd was pale in comparison to the pro-Trump rally held back on November 14th, also here in the district. After we gathered video of the protest for around 30 minutes, 4 or 5 people started shouting fake news at me and an ABC 7 photographer. Within minutes, we were surrounded by a large group. They hurled insults and expletives and demanded that we immediately leave the area. One woman shouted, "How can you sleep at night?" One man yelled through a bullhorn while placing it directly against my right ear. Here is more of what we witnessed. Now, I should note that the majority of this crowd did not act aggressively towards us. In fact, several people came up, introduced themselves, and had nice things to say. But as I have learned over the years, it only takes a few people to turn something peaceful upside down. This one of several pop-up fights we've witnessed throughout the evening on the streets of D.C. Proud Boys heavily visible among the pro-President Trump crowd. Antifa and Black Lives Matter making up a sizable percentage of the anti-Trump crowd. The Capitol Hilton on 16th Street Northwest quickly became ground zero. There, Trump supporters belted out the national anthem and Christmas carols. Counter-protesters shouted back, "Whose streets? Our streets." There have been multiple arrests throughout the evening. D.C. police assisted this female officer as she limped her way outside of the counter-protest zone. The officer appeared to have tears in her eyes. Around 8 p.m., Trump supporters surrounded this car at Thomas Circle, accusing the driver and front seat passenger of being liberals because they were wearing masks inside the vehicle.
Did you get that hat on QVC?
2 hours earlier, this group harassed these Trump supporters, hurling insults and knocking hats off their heads. Outgoing D.C. Police Chief Peter Newsham made an appearance in the protest zone, taking questions on a night that has few answers.
We don't want to be like them. Violence is all they know. We know peace. Be peaceful. Because at the end of the day, I care about you and all of your lives.
The significance of this venue is unprecedented. You can't go anywhere else in the world and replicate this.
The nation's capital is a place where influence is peddled and change settled, typically within corridors of power.
We all are striving for the same thing. We just want equality.
But when the world witnessed an unspeakable death, a rising tide of outrage born from generations of racial injustice
I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
stormed America's streets to secure a seat at history's table.
We're seeing people that are pissed off, that they don't have jobs, that the American dream has failed them, that they aren't where they should be.
Just the callousness at which this man his life was brought to an end. It was shocking. I think it shocked everyone, into this conversation, into this reality. And now everyone can agree. Maybe there is a devaluation of black lives in this country, and we need to look at that.
This broad campaign for equality includes an explosion of expression on wood, glass, walls, and pavement, coursing through Washington, D.C., breathing new life and new meaning into how we see and solve injustice.
Artists, we have such a unique voice. We have the ability to move people through word and image.
This movement's roots were planted in Lafayette Square, steps from the White House.
History is something you're a part of. It's nothing you plan for.
Here, protest signs, drawn, scratched, and scribbled, line trees, poles, and fences. For Yolanda Wells, horror and beauty sit side by side.
Even though it's a sad time for us, look at this. It is beautiful. All this art is beautiful. And it's causing everyone to come together. Yeah, it's a select few who do not see what's happening and the meaning behind it. But for the ones that do, it's a beautiful thing.
All right,
Right now, I'm just touching some things up. Color just tells the story, and it invokes so much, emotion.
Sonia Jones is among several artists working with the renowned Paints Institute, creating world-class murals.
Nina Simone said it's the responsibility of artists to reflect the times, and so I'm just happy to be able to be out here and do that. I am doing a portrait of a young man.
They started in Chinatown and Gallery Place, turning riot-proof slabs of plywood protecting businesses.
I want to focus on skin tone and his expression
into something extraordinary.
Part of his shirt is going to have part of the Black Panthers Party logo. Another one is going to be a fist because that's a trademark that I'm doing.
This transformation of motifs from war-zone wood to a landscape of promise was the brainchild of the downtown D.C. Business Improvement District, the Paints Institute, and the property owner.
The common theme is unity, togetherness, solidarity, and let's move forward.
Oxford Properties General Manager Josh Turnbull witnessed the power of public art here and wanted more.
I've got a building over at 16th and I Street, right in the heart of Black Lives Matter Plaza. We need to do this there. By the next morning, we had the artists over here, and here we are with now an outdoor art gallery.
This location where we are right now is 916th Street, and the street has been renamed Black Lives Matter Plaza.
Different shades of brown to reflect brown people, Black people, so they can see themselves in a rainbow. We're painting history right here. My name is Moses Mozart Rivera, and we call this Brown Babes Are Magic.
Just trying to give it a little bit of life. Try to use the same tones in both hands to show that we are more equal than we are different. Together we rise. As artists, we want to be a part of change, and this is a critical time, and to not take part, I think, is irresponsible.
Everybody has a gift, everybody has a way that they can tap in to kind of bring about real change, and she's just trying to channel that inner energy to do that.
My name is Levi Robinson. This piece is called Black Lives Matter to a Medic.
When riot police cleared protesters on that now infamous afternoon, medics were stationed on this very spot, this very piece of plywood, their triage rundown.
Supply lists, first aid kits, dates and times of when protesters were marching. That's why a lot of the wood is still exposed in the piece. I didn't want to paint over that. I wanted to preserve it because I felt like it told their story. This is my way of marching,
Our final stop, the entire block of 14th and V Streets, where Denver Terrence carefully, amid an ongoing construction project, built with dozens of volunteers, an ode to Black lives lost to racial injustice and police brutality. More than 100 names, some familiar, others not, including Terrence's uncle, Denver Smith, a college student gunned down during a peaceful protest at Southern University in 1972.
This wall is about information, it's about hope, but it's also about pain, and hopefully with acknowledging the pain, we can move towards some type of solution.
Hey Denver, can you give me some yellow?
It felt very heavy going down this mural, knowing that the police killed all these people and they're hired to protect us. Although some of the names were familiar, it's almost like the wall grabs you. After the wall touched me, I tried to leave the wall here versus taking the wall with me.
For some, it's hard to carry around a baggage of intolerance, filled with disappointment, rage, and loss. But this explosion of expression is about more than the injustices of yesterday. These murals, as they march through our nation's capital, remind us that we can move forward.
I think humans have evolved enough where we can look past something so trivial as race, color, to determine whether or not a person deserves to live.
I'm Jay Corv.
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. That's all we can be at this point is hopeful, right? I'm hopeful.
For ABC 7 News,